Document 7, Indiana Republican Albert J. Beveridge campaigns for office and empire, 1898. It is a glorious history our God has bestowed upon his chosen people, a history heroic with faith in our mission and our future, a history of statesmen who flung the boundaries of the Republic out into unexplored lands and savage wilderness, a history of soldiers who carried the flag across blazing deserts and through the ranks of hostile mountains, even to the gates of sunset, a history of a multiplying people who overran a continent in half a century. Have we no mission to perform, no duty to discharge to our fellow man? Has God endowed us with gifts beyond our deserts, and marked us as the people of his peculiar favor, merely to rot in our own selfishness, as men and nations must, who take cowardice for their companion and self for their deity, as China has, as India has, as Egypt has? Hawaii is ours. Puerto Rico is to be ours. At the prayer of her people, Cuba finally will be ours. In the islands of the East, even to the gates of Asia, coaling stations are to be ours at the very least. The flag of a liberal government is to float over the Philippines, and may it be the banner that Taylor unfurled in Texas and Fremont carried to the coast. The March of the Flag. In 1789, the flag of the Republic waved over 4 million souls in 13 states, and their savage territory which stretched to the Mississippi, to Canada, to the Floridas. The timid minds of that day said that no new territory was needed, and for the hour they were right. But Jefferson, through whose intellect the centuries marched, Jefferson, who dreamed of Cuba as an American state, Jefferson, the first imperialist of the Republic, Jefferson acquired that imperial territory which swept from the Mississippi to the mountains, from Texas to the British possessions, and the march of the flag began. Opponents of empire tell us that we ought not to govern a people without their consent. I answer, the rule of liberty that all just government derives its authority from the consent of the governed applies only to those who are capable of self-government. We govern the Indians without their consent. We govern our territories without their consent. We govern our children without their consent. How do they know that our government would be without their consent? Would not the people of the Philippines prefer the just, humane, civilizing government of this republic to the savage, bloody rule of pillage and extortion from which we have rescued them? And regardless of this formula of words made only for the enlightened, self-governing people, do we owe no duty to the world? Shall we turn these peoples back to the reeking hands from which we have taken them? Shall we abandon them with Germany, England, Japan hungering for them? Shall we save them from those nations to give them a self-rule of tragedy? And now, obeying the same voice that Jefferson heard and obeyed, that Jackson heard and obeyed, that Monroe heard and obeyed, that Seward heard and obeyed, that Grant heard and obeyed, that Harrison heard and obeyed, our president today plants the flag over the islands of the seas, outposts of commerce, citadels of national security, as the march of the flag goes on. And so, while we did not need the territory taken during the past century at the time it was acquired, we do need what we have taken in 1898, and we need it now. The resources and the commerce of these immensely rich dominions will be increased as much as American energy is greater than Spanish sloth. In Cuba alone, there are 15 million acres of forests unacquainted with the axe, exhaustless mines of iron, priceless deposits of manganese, millions of dollars worth of which we must buy today from the Black Sea districts. There are millions of acres yet unexplored. The resources of Puerto Rico have only been trifled with. The riches of the Philippines have hardly been touched by the fingertips of modern methods. And they produce what we consume, and consume what we produce. The very predestination of reciprocity. A reciprocity not made with hands eternal in the heavens. The commercial supremacy of the Republic means that this nation is to be the sovereign factor in the peace of the world. For the conflicts of the future are to be conflicts of trade, struggles for markets, commercial wars for existence. So Hawaii furnishes us a naval base in the heart of the Pacific, the Ladrones another, a voyage further on, Manila another at the gates of Asia. Asia, to the trade of whose hundreds of millions American merchants, manufacturers, farmers have as good a right as those of Germany or France or Russia or England. Asia, whose commerce with the United Kingdom alone amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Asia, to whom Germany looks to take her surplus products. Asia, whose doors must not be shut against American trade. Within 5 decades, the bulk of Oriental commerce will be ours. Wonderfully has God guided us. Yonder at Bunker Hill and Yorktown, his providence was above us. At New Orleans and on Sanguine seas, his hand sustained us. Abraham Lincoln was his minister, and his was the altar of freedom the nation's soldiers set up on 100 battlefields. His power directed Dewey in the east and delivered the Spanish fleet into our hands, as he delivered the elder Armada into the hands of our English sires 2 centuries ago. The American people cannot use a dishonest medium of exchange. It is ours to set the world its example of right and honor. We cannot fly from our world duties. It is ours to execute the purpose of a fate that has driven us to be greater than our small intentions. We cannot retreat from any soil where Providence has unfurled our banner. It is ours to save that soil for liberty and civilization.